Hey everyone, welcome back to our Italian series. So we did a few pages from chapter 1 and we're going to continue onward. The last thing we did was the ABCs, and I hope you revise that because it is going to be very important. Like I was saying, you often have at the oral exam, they might ask you to spell out a name or an address or something like that. So you need to know your ABCs. Also, because that helps with pronunciation in many cases. You'll find that Italian pronunciation is very straightforward, especially compared to the mess that is English. Okay, well, the next exercise that we have is ci come ciao. Ascolta le seguenti parole e ripeti. So listen to the following words. You can't see the words on here, but if you open up your book, let me just tell the page number. So that's page, I think that's page 8. You have it right under, that's number 6, page 8. You have a bunch of words. And, well, I don't know, maybe I should read out the words first and then you can listen to them. There's a bunch of really simple words. In fact, you probably have come across some of these words anyway, because English does borrow a lot from Italian. You have, of course, caffè, piacere, spaghetti, gatto, ciao, cinema, chitarra, gelato, giornale, formaggio, cane, zucchero, medico. And we'll listen to these. It's really in the beginning, I keep saying it, but it's super important that you keep listening over and over to the audio files that you have. And these are free to download, by the way. It's on the official Alma Edizioni website. So I'll add the link to the description so you can find it easily. I think you have to add some kind of code. If you can't find it, it should be just let me know. I'll, send you the code, the page number, whatever you need. So let's play the audio. And let me just find, okay, this is traccia 5. So we'll play that now. And just bear with me until I find traccia 5. There we go.
Traccia 5. Caffè. Piacere. Spaghetti. Gatto. Ciao. Cinema. Chitarra. Gelato. Giornale. Formaggio. Cane. Zucchero. Medico.
We'll listen to this
Traccia
more.
5. Caffè. Piacere. Spaghetti. Gatto. Ciao. Cinema. Chitarra. Gelato. Giornale. Formaggio. Cane. Zucchero. Medico.
Okay, and that's that. So now you've got a bunch of very basic words. Some of you probably already know a couple of these. Caffè, spaghetti, cinema, ciao, and of course gelato. All of these are, I mean, most of these at least, you might be familiar with some of them already. So now what we need to do is, and of course you should pause the video and replay the last like 3 or 4 minutes and just repeat the words. It might sound silly, but it's really important because your mouth needs to be comfortable. Like I, for the longest time, I mean, like when I was studying Italian, it was different because my mouth got used to all the sounds. But then I had a bit of a break and I was preparing for my German C1 exam. And so then my mouth took on this strange form. And then coming back to Italian was a bit of a challenge because, again, my mouth was used to pronouncing things a certain way. So sometimes I might say odd things like zucchero. That's really funny because I'm not pronouncing it correctly when I do that. Of course, it should be zucchero. You need to roll the R a little bit. That comes with practice. If you're not used to it already, that's fine. Just keep doing it. Your brain will eventually get it. The muscles of your jaw, tongue, mouth, lips will eventually get used to it. Anyway, it's a real fun musical language, so you'll enjoy speaking it as well. So what's the next exercise? Ordina le parole secondo i seguenti suoni. You have these by the way that you see over here. Ch as in ciao, k as in caffè. Now you'll notice that both of these start with the letter C, but they're pronounced differently, right? And of course, that's not very strange if you come from an English background. We're used to this type of stuff. Here as well, gelato, gatto. So why is this J and why is this G, right? You would think, okay, maybe that's gelato, gatto. No, this is something you'll have to keep in mind. In the beginning, I would get it confused, not with like gelato, because of course everybody knows gelato is gelato, but there are other words where you have, it starts with a G, and then might have I, or you might have E, you might have A, and then it's like you're thinking, okay, is this J or is this G? So that can happen. And so you'll have to just be careful. Make sure you get a lot of audio practice. One really great resource is forvo.com, forvo.com. That website has practically any word you could think of, and native speakers record themselves pronouncing the word. So it's a great resource if you're not sure how is this word pronounced. I mean, yeah, of course you can go on to something like DeepL and it'll do the job for you, but Forvo is great because it's got real human beings, right? So now we need to ordina, so we need to arrange all of these words, le parole, according to the following sounds, suoni, sounds. So we've got ch as in ciao. We've also got, what else have we got? Let's see, caffè, no. Perché? Because that one is k, this k, caffè. What else? We've got, oops, let me zoom out. We've got piacere, ch. So that's right here. Piacere. Often when you meet someone, you might, after you introduce yourself, you might say piacere because you're pleased to be acquainted with them. This is also, of course, a verb that we use when we say something, you like something, then you use that verb as well. So it's got multiple uses. Okay, then we've got our next word. What else do we have? We've done piacere, spaghetti, getti. So spaghetti. Then we've got ciao, that's already done. What? Oh, gatto, gatto, that's already done right here. We've got ciao, that's already done right here. Cinema. So you'll notice when you have this C and I, right, you often have the G sound. So like that, ciao, cinema. Chitarra, we have an H, and so that changes the sound. This is also true for G. GHI would be G. GI would be G. But GHI would be G. So that's another thing you'll come across very soon. So we've got G, guitarra, guitarra. Gelato is already done. Giornale. So again, J, giornale. And got another thing here. This J. You'll notice that these aren't like hard sounds like k and g, right? Gatto, caffè. But rather the kind of, in a way, smooth j, ch, right? They've got that sh type of thing going on. So here you have CI, you have GI, you have GE. So you'll notice these types of patterns, and as and when you come across new words, you'll be able to easily figure out, even if you haven't heard that word before, you will be able to kind of, with a good amount of accuracy, kind of predict, okay, how am I going to pronounce this word, even if it's a brand new word. So have some trust in the process and in yourself. So we've done chitarra, giornale, formaggio, j. So that one is also right here. Formaggio, cane, k, cane, dog, zucchero, sugar, zuc. So you have that hard K sound, zucchero, zucchero. Sometimes I'll correct myself because again, I'm kind of in that brain kind of that part of my brain that's been preparing for the German exam has it's taking kind of like a hard time to kind of get out of that mindset. Okay, well anyway, zucchero, medico, k again, medico, k. So there we have it. So you arrange these sounds, and this kind of thing, I think, like the way that we normally teach English, if we introduce these sounds to people, I think they'd have a much easier time. So I'm glad that this book does that because, again, Nuovo Espresso is a really, really good book. You have Nuovo Espresso all the way until C2, by the way. So if you're thinking, I'm going to go ahead and do A2, B1, etc., this is the only book you'll need. Not this specific one, but this series, I mean. And then you have a couple rules. La C si pronuncia C davanti a blank e C davanti a. So you see how the letter C, la C, si pronuncia, one pronounces. In English, we would we don't really say one, right? But in Italian, like si pronuncia means that they, pronounce it. They who? Just people in general, people rather, actually. You have that in English. We have one. Instead of saying, you pronounce. Because when you say, see, nowadays people will say that, you should eat a healthy diet. When you say that, you don't mean like you, the person in front of you. You just mean like generally, oh, people should, eat a healthy diet. But when you say you, right, the problem is that it seems like you're talking to the person, who's like there in front of you or, talking to someone specifically, which may not be the case. And so we used to use one, but nowadays using one in English is very old fashioned for some reason. You hardly ever see people doing that. So it exists. The same thing exists in English. Si pronuncia, one pronounces, but it's considered like very old fashioned and you almost don't really see that nowadays. So if you ever see that and you get confused, because of course, I mean, a lot of these things in these languages don't necessarily have a one-to-one translation, but in the cases where they do, of course, it makes things a bit easier. And you have the same thing in German, Mann, when you talk about things being done generally. So si pronuncia ch davanti before what? When does si become ch? You can see that right here. Ciao, piacere, cinema. No? A k. When does C become k? When does it sound like k? Davanti a. You can see the spelling right here. Whenever you have, for example, let's do this one first, right? So we have, anytime you have C plus I, that becomes G. Ciao, cinema. You also have before E. So piacere. You have G sounds. There's also a name called Chiara. Chiara. Or chiaro can be an adjective, just means clear. That's a very popular name though, Chiara. Okay, well anyway, the K. So when does C sound like K? Before A, caffè. When you have H, that also changes the sound. Again, you have zucchero, chitarra, you have CH. Also before O, co. davanti a. Let's just make that bold or underline that so you're not confused. There we go. Davanti a I e E. And then we have la G. Si pronuncia G davanti a before. And you can see that right here. What's the pattern? You'll notice before E and before I, right? Again, you have formaggio. Again, you have GI, GI, GE. So before these, before these right here. And a G. So this is called, if you want to be specific, this is called a hard attack, not heart attack, hard attack sound. German has a lot of those. That's why people say it sounds aggressive. English is starting to sound a lot like that nowadays as well. Okay, so when does G sound like G? Gatto, A, spaghetti. Again, you'll notice H, right? Something similar going on over here. G, hard type of sound, and G, again a hard sound. You'll notice A and H, and again you have A and H over here as well. So anytime you have, CH, GH, it's going to be G, G, etc. Okay, then we have some writing over here. Come si scrive? Si scrive. How does one write? Si pronuncia. One pronounces. Si scrive. One writes. Okay, ascolta, listen. Il breve dialogo, listen to a short dialogue. E lavora con un compagno. Work with a friend, colleague, coworker. Your teammate, classmate, or alone if you're following. Lo studente A, student A, copre la parte relativa allo studente B. Takes the part of student B, and lo studente B, quella dello studente A. Comincia lo studente. That should be B, not 8. Sometimes when you copy paste, weird things happen. So student B starts, che chiede il nome allo studente A, asking the name of student A sul modello del dialogo ascoltato, according to the model in this dialogue that you have heard. Poi, after that, si prosegue a turno. After that, you follow taking turns. So basically, you ask your partner, hey, come ti chiami? And then they say their name, Gino Argan. Come si scrive? How do you write that? And then, like I said, it's so important to know your ABCs because you're going to have to spell out your name. And this is very common in the A1 exam, by the way. So you'll want to know your ABCs well. It's relatively straightforward for the most part. Not too different. Let's do a quick revision. You've got A, B, G, E, A, F, not F, F, you need that F, G, H, that one's a little bit different, I, L, M, N, O, P, Q, not Q. A lot of people will say Q, especially if you're coming from a French background or a French learning background. That's obviously something that you would struggle with because, of course, if C and U were part of a French word, you would say Q because that is how it goes in French. But here it's more like if you have, for example, the word tu versus tu. You have tu and you have tu. You have tu in French, you, and you have tu. You have tous. So that's kind of how, I don't know if it makes sense yet, because of course, if you don't have a French background, this won't make sense. But if you have, for example, let me type that out here. So this, tu, ku, that's the kind of sound. So don't get it confused. A lot of, when I was doing A1, well, actually even now, a lot of students come from a French learning background and they still tend to pronounce things the French way. So it's different here. You have to be careful not to say, for example, Q, but instead it's ku, a lot more straight in a way. Ku versus Q, this is ku. You have R, again, it's not just R, R, S, T, U, V, O, sometimes V, theta. It's not zeta. A lot of people say z, but that's different. This has to be, it's more like a sort of like it's like TNS. It's like TNS together. Theta. Yeah. Even now, even in our B2 course, I'm doing a B2 program, and there's a lot of my classmates that will say, words that have said, like, zucchero. They might say zucchero. That's, I mean, you will be understood. No one's going to like not understand you, but it's not the right pronunciation. So, and this is actually pretty common in a lot of European languages. So, ts, not z. And then you have lettere straniere, foreign letters, ilunga, K, W, X, Y. Uh, and that's so, yeah, that's good to revise. Keep doing that because, again, you will be asked most likely because it's, A1 exams are always, oh, how old are you? What do you eat for breakfast? Really basic things like that. But then again, if you haven't, if you don't know your numbers, if you don't know your letters, that's going to be because they might ask you, okay, what's your cell phone number? Or you might have to do a small dialogue with your exam partner. And, it could be something like just, introduce yourselves to each other. And the other person says, okay, come ti chiami? And then you say, okay, mi chiamo Alex. And then like, okay, well, how do you spell your name? Ah, okay, well, I didn't revise my ABCDs or ABCDs, so I don't know. So you don't want that kind of situation to happen. A, L, E, or A, E, I, O, U, those are like kind of standard. X. So you have to be able to, most of these are, I don't think they're that difficult. I know that I struggled sometimes because I would just say M and N. I would not say M and N for quite a while. It took some time to like get into my brain. So that can happen. But again, if you just spend like maybe how much time? 3 minutes each day for like a week, you'll get it. Super simple. It's super simple. Okay, then what else do we have? So yeah, that's like, introduce yourself. You can also, by the way, this is a card type of thing that you can use. You can fill these in. You can use this as practice, in fact. So you have nome, first name, cognome, surname. And you have Alcide de Gasperi. You can use this kind of like to practice pronunciation. You have Gerardo, not G entirely, not too much of a H, because that H sound really doesn't exist. You'll notice when we start doing verbs and things like that. For example, one verb is ho paura, I'm afraid. The spelling is H-O, but you don't really hear the H, and that's common in French as well. So Gerardo, not Gerardo, not J, right? Because again, you got GH, you got that akka. This one is really fun, by the way. You have chi, chiquito. A lot of people might say, oh, is that chi? Is that ki? Because again, it's something new, right? Some of these are tongue twisters, some of these names. And then you also got, for example, Ciocca. This one, Euridice Ciocca. And you have these blanks. Of these, by the way, A is all male names. Alcide, Gerardo, Marcello. You got B, these are all female names. Well, some of these, Sergio, that would be a male name. I'm not sure why that's over here. Okay, well, Gianni is also a male name. So why is that? Okay, well, looks like they're not, huh? Okay, so that's A is studento A, and B is studento B. Okay, well, right. So you have, you fill in these names and you ask each other if you have got a partner that you're studying with, or you can just do it for yourself. And you can just, check this little table here. Am I doing it right? A, B, C, D. Okay, am I, forgetting something? Fairly simple. Or as I was saying, I will hopefully this week, let me add that to my calendar. I will try and create a Discord for us. Now, I'm not sure how exactly it works, but some people have suggested it, and I think that's a pretty good idea. We could probably do a couple of things there. So yeah, we'll do that. I'll set up a Discord so we can, you can maybe even find study partners and things like that there. Maybe we could like do a lesson together sometime, make this a lot more interactive. So we could do things like that. I think that's a good idea. Okay, then we have the next thing. This is question 8. This is on the next page, is it? Yeah, this is on page 10. And we have, this is a bit of a listening exercise. E lei di dove? LA, and you lei is this capital L lei, by the way. That one is the formal form of tu. So you've got tu, which you would use with people who are your friends, people who are similar in age. And you would use lei essentially with strangers or people who are, let's say, in a hierarchy above you. So, like managers, supervisors, teachers, professors, doctors, etc. You'd use lei as a form just, to be courteous. And of course, I mean, depends. Sometimes you start with lei and the other person's like, no, we can use two with each other. So, but the other person has to offer it. So always try and start with lei. If that person is, you can visibly say, okay, they're not like the same, age as me, then it's better to be safe. So, lei, di dove? Di dove is where are you from? And here it says, ascolta, listen, e completa I dialoghi. I dialoghi, the dialogues. We have a couple dialogues over here. You have these over here. Lei è italiana? Sì. E lei? Inglese? Are you Italian? Italiana is a female. If it was italiano, then it would be Italian. That would be a man. So O ending, male, A ending, female. Sì, e lei? Yes. And you? È inglese. Are you English? No, sono irlandese. Nope, I'm Irish. Ah, irlandese. Sì, sono di Dublino. Yes, I'm from Dublin. E lei? Would you use di dove? Or would you use di dove sei? How do you decide? Well, di dove is the formal one, and di dove sei is something that you use with, your friends, people who are your age mates, peers, and so on. So, tu, di dove sei? With you meet someone who's a stranger, okay, but they're like the same age as you, or they're like you study together or something like that, then you would use, di dove sei. You'd use tu basically, so you'd use di dove sei. That because the conjugation is this is okay. This is essere. Let me just have we done essere? I don't think we have. We haven't really done any because it's like the very first chapter. We haven't done any verbs, I don't think, but we have essere. So why not start with a little bit of conjugation? Because essere is one of the most like basic, one of the most important verbs, along with avere, but we'll tackle that monster later. It's not a monster. It's fun. But these forms can be like you have essere, but when you actually conjugate it, it looks very different. So, but it's simple enough. So LA, because you have lei, capital L, by the way, because you also have lowercase l, and that's just she. You have lei, Louis, he and she and he. But this is important. The capital L, okay? If it's lowercase, then that's of course different. But then in that case, you'd be talking about LA and she. Where does she come from? That would be different. Capital L, lei is formal. So LA, by the way, it says ascolta e completa. So we're going to listen and then we're going to complete. But we can, have a look at these blanks and kind of try and, guesstimate before we. It's a good way to do an exercise. Just look at it first, try and see what your brain comes up with. Yeah. Sei tedesco? Are you German? No, sono austriaco. No, I'm Austrian. E tu? And then you have a blank. What would you use in that blank? Would you use di dove sei or di dove? Well, we'll listen and figure that out. But you might have some ideas. You could type them out in the chat box. Could be a good exercise. Sono italiana di Genova. I'm an Italian woman because you have the A ending. I'm from Genova. Okay, well, you've got a bunch of options over here as well. Let's listen to the tape. So this is traccia. Have we done traccia? So, okay, ascolta il dialogo. We haven't actually listened to the dialogue. So I was thinking we did traccia 5, track 5, but where's track 6? So ascolta, yeah, oops. Okay, well, let's listen to this first. So let's traccia, okay, traccia 6.
Traccia 6.
Come ti chiami?
Gino Argan.
Come si scrive?
G, I, N, O, A, R, G, A, N.
Traccia 6. Come ti chiami?
Gino Argan.
Come si scrive?
G, I, N, O, A, R, G, A, N.
Okay. And then we have traccia 8. Or did we just... traccia 7. 7, not 8. Which is this one right here.
Traccia 7.
Lei è italiana?
Sì, e lei è inglese?
No, sono irlandese.
Ah, irlandese.
Sì, sono di Dublino. E lei? Di dov'è?
Di Verona.
Sei tedesco?
No, sono austriaco. E tu di dove sei?
Sono italiana, di Genova.
Let's listen once more.
Traccia 7.
Lei è italiana?
Sì, e lei è inglese?
No, sono irlandese.
Ah, irlandese.
Sì, sono di Dublino. E lei? Di dov'è?
Di Verona.
Sei tedesco?
No, sono austriaco. E tu di dove sei?
Sono italiana, di Genova.
Okay. Right, so what have you got to do? Here you have to decide between di dove sei e and di dove. Now here we got lei, which is, as I said, it's formal. So here we'd use lei, di dove. By the way, you have if you ever check online, I'm just trying to find where my keys are because I switched my keyboard to Italian and then yeah, okay, there we go. So we've got this, which is the normal E, but here you have this accent, right? You have this accent mark, and this type of spelling, by the way, in the exam is really important. So don't forget all these tiny things. They look like tiny things, but they're very important. However, one thing you can do, and one thing I have noticed online, on the internet especially, is people will often write like this. So they'll write, instead of, for example, A, which is, by the way, this is A, this means is. People will end up writing just this, yeah, because maybe their keyboard doesn't have the accent or whatever, they're lazy, whatever, any reason. So this is also common, and of course, but this is like the best thing to do, of course, at least in the exam that you'll have, so be careful there. Make sure to write this correctly. Now, you're depending on your keyboard, like for me right now, this is the bracket key that I'm using. Right next to P, there's a key, and so that one gets this. If you click on Shift, then you have a different type of E. That one is pronounced differently. Okay, so LA, right? Because it's formal. And you have this one because they're using tu, and so you'd use di dove sei, di dove sei. There you go. Now, essere is a really useful, we're going to take some space for this. We're going to put that over here because this is one of those basic verbs that you need to use, just like avere, but we'll deal with that later on. So let's make ourselves a nice table. Let's put that in here. And by the way, there's a really good website. I'll share that with you. It's called, you have Lingui, but you also have, Lingui is more like a kind of a dictionary, but the great thing is you get to see sentences. I'll explain that later on. And then you have dict.cc, which is just wonderful. It's the best dictionary. I use that for a lot of languages that we do. Then you also have a website for conjugations. You will want to save this somewhere because you have, you're going to use this a lot. especially right now in the beginning. This is going to turn out to be super helpful. So let me just paste that over here. This one is conjugazione.it. So this one right here, any kind of verb you have. In fact, this works for a lot of languages. Conjugazione. As the name suggests, you have conjugation. So you throw in, for example, essere. And you got a lot of stuff, by the way. So I don't want you to be confused or scared like I was the first time. Don't scroll down. Just don't scroll down. Okay, just look at indicativo, presente, presente, present. And you got indicati, which is the indicative basic form. This is all you need. All you need right now is just this. So there are 6 people. Essentially, you have io, which is of course you. Io. And then you have tu. Well, io is, well, me. Sorry, not you. I meant like io, me. Tu, you. And then you've also got lei or lui. Scusa. Okay, my slash key. Okay, there we go. You got lei or lui, same thing. Also, lei. So the conjugation for the formal you, which is lei, or he or she, that's the same. So that's the great thing. Here they only show you lui, but it's the same thing. Then we have noi, so that's us. You have voi, which is you guys. We don't have that in English. We don't have a plural you in English. So that's really strange. You have y'all, but then that sounds very southern. So you guys, multiple people, when you're addressing multiple people. So voi is the plural form of tu. Tu is just one person, right? Voi is many twos in a way. And finally, you also have loro, they. Okay, that's all you have. We're gonna get rid of these 2 right here. Okay, now we've got io sono. You see how it doesn't look similar to essere at all? That's kind of strange, isn't it? So that's why I said, okay, it can be a bit like confusing in the beginning, but again, it's not hard. It's not hard. You will get used to it. You will get used to it very easily. So we've got io sono, I am. To say, di dove sei? To say. Remember that one? See that right here? So to say lei o lui or lei formale, that one would be like this with the accent on top. So don't just write e and be like, yeah, that's okay. No, you must write it this way. That is not optional. It's not optional because it does influence the pronunciation. However, I've noticed that it's not really that big of a difference in terms of pronunciation. It's not something that's like make or break, right? So anyway, then we have noi siamo, we are, voi siete, you guys are. And the great thing about loro is, well, it's the same thing as io sono, loro sono. There we go. So that's the conjugation that you'll have to learn by heart. There's no other way. And I know right now it looks like it doesn't make sense. How does essere become sono, sei, siamo, siete, sono? It's strange, I know, but bear with the strangeness because Italian has a lot of fun to offer as well. Okay, so that's that. This is the table that I recommend, by the way, with conjugation. What a lot of people do is they'll download tables or they'll download images or stuff like that. That's fine if it works for you, but it never worked for me. I would have to make my own conjugation tables, even though like you could just go onto the website and okay, everything is right here. But doing it yourself, again, it's like you're doing it yourself, so it helps to commit that to your memory. It helps your brain as well. So I recommend doing it this way. You can also do it in Google Sheets, by the way. You don't have to create a conjugation table for every single verb that you come across because in it you have, certain types of verbs, so the endings, they become very predictable. So that's also a good thing. It's easy, of course. But in the beginning, at least for really important ones like essere, avere, we'll do that later, as I said. But yeah, you'll want to do that by yourself. Maybe write that in a notebook or something. I think that would also be a good idea because that's what I did, and that kind of helped me, not just with Italian, but with a lot of other languages as well. Right now, you're just like taking baby steps, so it's really important that this foundation that you have is solid, right? You don't want a shaky foundation because then you'll have problems, in A2, B1, B2, and so on. Okay, I think that's probably enough for a day. I don't know. You let me know. What do you think? Would you like longer lessons? Or is like 45 minutes good enough for you? We'll do it that way because I was thinking, because, like sitting down for like an hour, that might be a bit too much for some people. But by the next, like when we do the next lesson, we'll definitely have finished chapter one. I might also do some extra exercises. I don't know. Let me know if you think extra exercise would be a good idea. You also have videos in this book. I mean, as part of this book, you can again find them online on the Alma Edizione website. They're free of cost, by the way, and they're really good videos, really fun, nice introduction to the language. And of course, it's really, really important that you train your ear. So what I'll do maybe is I could create a Spotify playlist with Italian music, some that I like. It was hard to find in the beginning, unlike German, where you have like a lot of artists and bands, especially in rock and metal that I like. But yeah, you have some really great artists. Maybe I'll create a playlist and share that with you. It's really important that you find some joy, okay? It's really important for you to maybe you find a TV show that you like that's in Italian, movies that you like, music that you like, but you have to find some kind of media. It could be podcasts, it could be anything, but you need to find media because that ultimately, that exposure to the language will help you in many ways. Your brain is working, in many sectors when you listen or when you watch, when you consume media. Okay, so that's, I think, enough for today, but I will see you in the next lesson. And until then, ciao!